Hi, my name's Karen Davies, and this is the Karen Davies podcast, episode 14. Are you comfortable? Bit of a weird question, right? Of course, everyone wants to be comfortable. Emotionally, financially, physically, there's nothing better than feeling safe and secure. However, this can be a problem. I was recently listening to a podcast that had Alex Hormozi as a guest. If you don't know Alex Hormozi, he's someone that went from having it all, having a safe, secure job at the age of 22, being able to afford a nice apartment, having a great salary, and then he threw it all in. And he quit his job and went to open a gym on the other side of the country where he lived, in America. And basically ended up working 20 hours a day and sleeping on the floor of his gym. The funny thing about this was he talked about all the challenges that he faced during that time. He talked about making a lot of money and losing it. He talked about having to give multiple refunds in his business, thousands of dollars when he had no money. He talked about business partners having misunderstandings and potentially ripping him off for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And at one point, he was literally sleeping in the spare room of his new girlfriend's parents' house. I think he'd been with his girlfriend for about 4 months at this point, and he had nothing. He even said to her, "Listen, if you want to leave me, I totally understand." And she said, "I'd sleep with you under a bridge if it came to it." Here we have a guy really down on his luck. No home, no steady, regular income, no savings, and he's relying on his new girlfriend for food and shelter. And he said out of everything that he experienced, all the challenges, the lack of money, lack of security, lack of accommodation, the hardest thing he ever did was quit his job and move across the country. Like I said, it was a safe, secure job. It paid regularly. He wasn't a millionaire or anything, but he did well for himself. He had the nice apartment, the stable income, money to spend on luxuries. And he said out of everything he's done, that's the hardest thing he's had to do. And then he went on to give this amazing piece of advice. He said, maybe you need to agitate some pain in your life to get out of your current circumstances. This statement has really stuck with me. It's something that I can relate to entirely. I remember having a beautiful 3-bedroom house with a conservatory and 2 lounges and a nice kitchen and garden. I had a partner of several years that I shared the house with. I had a fantastic high-paying job, and I decided to leave it all. I didn't do it all at the same time. Firstly, I left the partner in the house. I signed over my half of the house to him, and then probably about 18 months later, I left my fancy job and I had no money or savings, and I got on a plane to the other side of the world without a single plan, and it was scary. I didn't know what I was going to do, and there was no guarantee that things would be better, but I knew I had to do something. I had this feeling, this instinct, this, I don't know what it was, a gut reaction that there was something else out there for me, that this was what I was meant to do. And that was despite the fact that for the past 15 years, I'd worked in an industry and jobs that I loved. I'd been a music promoter and venue manager. I adored everything about it. I adored booking bands, negotiating contracts with agents, managing live events, working with security teams and bar staff and other promoters, and meeting famous bands and watching the gigs. And I loved all of it, but I just felt I needed to do something different. And without any tangible evidence or proof that this was the right thing to do, there was no guarantee of a job, there was no savings, no one came to me and said everything would be okay. I just stepped into the unknown, and it was one of the scariest things I've ever done. But it just felt right. On some intrinsic level, I just knew that everything was going to be okay, without actually knowing. Now, that doesn't mean it was all sunshine and roses. It certainly wasn't. I distinctly remember for the first 8 to 12 weeks, I was trying to get a job and I couldn't. I'd apply for anything and everything. I'd gone from this high-powered, long career in the UK music industry, and now here I was on the other side of the world and I couldn't even get a waitress or bar job. I couldn't get an admin job, and I certainly couldn't get any jobs doing what I've been doing in the UK. People just didn't care. They didn't care about my contacts. They didn't care about my venue management experience. I was right back at the bottom where I'd been 15 years ago, but it reminded me that I was resilient. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of tears. Have you ever been sat on your own at 30 years of age, on the other side of the world, without a job, just with a credit card, wondering what the heck you've done and was it the right thing? All that self-doubt, all that second-guessing yourself. That was me. But I still had that gut feel that everything was going to be all right. I still knew that if I kept trying and kept going, that I would get where I needed to go. And I didn't even know where I was going. All I did was take one step in front of me at a time. So for example, I knew that I needed a job and I knew I needed somewhere to live. And fortunately, I found both in the same place. There was a construction project in rural South Australia that was looking for someone to book travel and accommodation for 300 construction workers that were working on a 6-month project. And as fortune would have it, my visa limited me to working only 6 months as a maximum in any job, as I was on a 1-year working holiday visa. So I saw the advert in the newspaper and I phoned up and I was told that actually they'd found someone. And then a week later, I saw the same advert again and I phoned up again and they told me the person that they had quit, and they asked if I'd had any experience booking travel and accommodation. I had not. But when I explained about my time as a holiday rep in Greece for 3 seasons, managing all the guests in the hotels, they ended up asking when I could start, and I played it really cool and I said as soon as possible. And a week later, I was in the middle of nowhere in a really small town in South Australia on a construction site. Now, we all know the rest of the story. Ultimately, several years later, here I am. I've got 3 degrees, 2 of which are engineering degrees. By day, I work as a manager for major construction and in great money. And also, I have my own coaching business and podcast, and I love my life. I love everything about it. I have amazing friends and family. I'm an Australian citizen and I feel truly blessed. In 2011, when I got on that plane, I didn't know that that was how my journey was going to be. I didn't know this is where I would end up. Well, I didn't consciously know that, but that gut feeling, that subconscious knowing that no matter what happened, I'd be okay, that was still there. I was relatively comfortable where I was in the UK. I had a job, I had a roof over my head. I could have just stayed there. I didn't have to use my credit card to buy a plane ticket and get a visa. I didn't have to go to another country and leave my job and my flat and my family and friends and belongings. But that was me agitating some sort of discomfort, some sort of pain in my life. Knowing what I know now, I would do it all again in a heartbeat. It is one of the best things I've ever done for myself. And it's something that I keep in mind every time that gut feeling comes to me. I'm not telling you to go to extremes. I wouldn't do that. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm not saying move across to the other side of the world. But I am saying to you, if you're currently super comfy right now and you're happy, then great. Stay that way. There's no need to do anything different. But if you've got that niggle, if you've got something somewhere inside of you saying there's more out there, there's something else that you're meant for, something more, then listen to it. Too many of us push that little voice, that little feeling down inside, and we try to ignore it. And all that happens is that you end up questioning whether or not you should have done something. You end up having regrets. And I'm a believer that it's never too late to try something new, to do something different. You've heard me say it before, but it's true. The only things stopping you from doing what you need to do are your own thoughts. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So believe in yourself and take that chance on yourself. You don't have to be as extreme as me. You don't have to do what I did, but back yourself. Apply for that job that you think you might not get, or apply for that course that you really want to do. Book that holiday, start that savings plan, write the first page of that book, register that business name, build the first page of that website, have that conversation you've been wanting to have. Just whatever it is, take a step towards your goal, towards that dream. Just give it a try. You might surprise yourself. I'm a big believer in the fact that I don't need to know the whole story. I don't need to know how. I just need to know the what and the why. And everything else will fall into place. I read one of my old journals the other day, and at the time I was earning $70,000 a year, and one of my goals was to earn over $100,000 a year. I didn't know how I was going to do that, and it seemed like an impossible goal at the time. 6 figures seemed out of the realms of possibility to me, but I wrote it down and I took one step at a time towards that goal without knowing the entire roadmap. I just knew that I had this goal and I was working towards it. Now, I far surpassed that goal nowadays, and I don't say that to brag, but to show you what's possible. That figure felt very uncomfortable to me at the time when I wrote it down, and it required me to take a lot of action without any evidence. But here we are. One of my new goals now includes me making $1 million in a single year. Right now, that seems like an astronomical number, and I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But I have this faith, this belief, that same gut feel that I will make it happen. I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know exactly how I will do it, but I do know without a shadow of a doubt that I will do it. And I also know that it will require me to agitate even more discomfort in my life and really stretch myself. From the outside, it may not make sense to others. And at the time, it might not even make sense to me, but I've learned to trust my gut, even when I'm on my own, sat with a feeling of fear and anticipation and thoughts like, am I doing the right thing? I know that I'm meant for something more and that I need to push on. And it's not all about money. It's about sharing my knowledge, skills, experience and learning with other people to help them be better versions of themselves, the same way that I've taught myself to be a better version of myself. So ask yourself, what more are you meant for? What is your gut trying to tell you that you're ignoring, that you're pushing down inside? Do you need to agitate some discomfort in your life? As always, let me know how you go. I genuinely love hearing from you on social media. Contact me on Instagram at Karen Davies Coaching, and I always try to respond to each and every one of you. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, come and check out my website, karendaviescoaching.com. There's plenty of resources, tips and downloads, as well as the opportunity to work with me.